Good evening. I'm John Bailey. This is People to Be Heard, the program where people who have something to say have their say. Tonight, you have got Michael Gordon. He is the co-chairman of Sustainable Westchester and the chief executive officer of Joule Assets, a power consortium, so to speak. Right. But anyway, thank you for joining us. And you are here because this is the month that White Plains and I think 23 other communities are going to be switching over to Sustainable Westchester Con Ed solutions as their power source, most of them choosing 100% green power. So first of all, what is happening this month, Mr. Gordon? The Con Ed solution switches residents to 100% green power as their bill reading dates come up. What can residents expect?
Very little change except price. So the price is now fixed at 7.6 cents a kilowatt hour. And it's fixed in southern Westchester for 2 years. In northern Westchester, it's fixed for 3 years. And it's really neat that since we actually signed this contract, fossil fuel prices have gone up roughly 20%. So we signed this contract at a really good time for consumers. So consumers are now going to experience those fixed rates for 2 years. Now, there's much more that we can do beyond just simply fixing. But the bill's coming from the same place. You're still getting your bill from Con Edison. So let's be clear, though, the poles and wires are still covered by Con Edison. There's no change with respect to poles and wires.
Con Edison still handles the transmission, and they bill you for the transmission charge.
That's exactly right. And that is over and above your electron charge. So in essence, you have two bills. There's the transmission and distribution, which is Con Ed's portion, and then there's that free market portion, which is the electrons themselves. And traditionally, New York State has told you that if you don't exercise your choice, well, Con Edison is going to cover that too, which means that individuals who exercise their choice, a lot of people get these phone calls all the time from these suppliers, right? Yeah. And if they exercise this choice, they're one individual working with a company with very little clout. But now that state decision, which says you stay with Con Edison if you do nothing, that state decision has become a municipal decision. So the municipality, in this case White Plains, can say, we're going to designate that if you do nothing, you're going to be with this other supplier. In this case, it's a subsidiary of Con Edison Solutions.
So you're putting together all of these municipalities, all of these customers, and you're going in just as anyone would go into a Sam's Club, and if you buy enough of this stuff in a huge quantity, you get it at a lower price. That's
it should be cheap, as cheap as Sam's Club.
Yeah, and it does have an impact on price, but the critical impact is the kind of clout that you can get to get a contractual structure which puts all the power in your court. I guess pun intended. All the power's in our court. So
you're intending to make Sustainable Westchester then a controlling force among electricity users here in Westchester.
I would only quibble with the word controlling. So if we intelligently ourselves as individuals control when we consume electricity with total freedom to consume whatever it is we want, whenever it is that we want it. But if we control what we consume at the right moment, it's critically important for price. I'll give you an example. 25% of our electricity costs are determined in 1 hour of the year.
A peak time.
Yes. It happens to be the time when the power grid is most stressed. So last year, we were talking before we went on the air about this. Last year, it was July 29th at 4 p.m.
In other words, in the electric business, everything is structured to hit the peak so that it doesn't
Yes.
collapse when you have a peak demand.
Exactly. And so they have this kind of a bandwidth cost. It's called the capacity charge, but it's a bandwidth cost that everybody pays. And that bandwidth is responsible for roughly 25%. And the amount of bandwidth that we have to buy is determined in 1 hour of the year. Well, with this contract, we've structured it so that if we collectively reduce in that 1 hour, and if our supplier ends up having bandwidth to sell back into the market because we collectively reduced, well, that bandwidth reduction will go directly to consumers.
In White
In the
Plains,
next contract.
In the not even in the next
Yeah,
contract,
no.
in the next year.
In the next, it would. So
Yeah,
we
because
can
it's
see-
bandwidth for the next year. So, for instance,
okay.
July 29th at 4 p.m. last year, starting October 1st, that determines 25% of our power cost. So starting next, so if we were, for instance, to reduce in that one peak power hour, you may hear something about the peak power hour where people get texted to be notified that it's the peak power hour. If we reduce during that one peak power hour this year, our bandwidth requirements starting October 1st could go down.
and therefore the cost would go down.
Exactly.
When this
It would
wa-
go down in the
when
second year, right?
Yes,
when,
exactly.
When this
Bingo.
was first brought into White Plains, Mayor Roach and some of the others who are promoting this said that White Plains residents would see their costs go down. Now,
But he didn't say when.
In my case, the amount that I paid to Con Edison last month was about 2 cents per kilowatt hour less than your fixed rate.
So the price that we're fixing at, the 7.6 cents price, is roughly 5% less than 5 to 8% less than the average that you paid last year. So
Directly to Con
that's
Edison.
right. So it's based on the average that you paid over the last 12 months. So in some months it's going to be lower, in other months it's going to be higher. On average, it is 5 to 8% less than you paid last year. It's no guarantee for the future. So if fossil fuel prices go further down, it's very possible that Con Edison prices
Would be
could be
selling
cheaper.
less.
Yeah,
Could be
and you're
cheaper.
in the money
However,
then.
however,
Yes.
we negotiated this contractual term so that anybody can leave at any time with zero penalty. I don't think it's going to be wise to leave. If you leave, you won't be able to get back in at the same price. But anybody's free to leave without any penalty whatsoever.
even
So
lower.
if someone wants to join in the future, you would then go in at a current price or an original price or a fixed price?
Yeah,
How would
that's
how
a very
would
good
that work?
very
Yeah.
good question. We still have we still will get the original price. Somebody wanted to join right now, they would still get that original price. They would connect with Westchester Power and get that original price. However, there may come a point when so many people want to join and the market has gone so far up that the fixed price that they would get would not be the same 7.6
You'd have to start
cents.
at a higher level.
That's
then.
exactly right. When will that happen? My bet is we've got 107,000 customers. My bet is that when we hit 115,000, we're going to start getting complaints from our suppliers saying we have to be offering current rates. You know, we have to be fixing at current rates.
So how do we know that what we're getting when we go to turn on a light is really green electricity generated by hydropower or solar power or wind power?
Yeah.
You can't tell, you know, an electron is an
That's
electron.
another great.
is an electron.
That's another great question. So, in your home, you're going to get a mix of electrons that is the mix that's on the power grid because you can't. These are squirrely things, right? You can't control
you don't
electrons.
have
Okay,
electron
so-
police saying
Right,
you go here
exactly,
and you go there.
exactly.
So that's a very good point. That you may be green, but may not really be green.
Yeah, you're never ever going to connect unless you have, as we talked about, a microgrid, which is 100% powered by local clean generation, then you're going to know that the electrons are coming into you're going to know exactly where the sources are. But once you're hooked up to the grid as a whole, you are getting the mix of electrons that that grid is putting out. So the question for how you set up a green economy and green generation is how do you compensate the renewable generators so that there are more of them in the market, so that you get to 10, 15, 20%.
Sustainable Westchester, you want to get into that. You
Absolutely.
Want to promote
You're going to build
these
solar panels in
microgrids.
White Plains.
So does it make sense to push ahead with that now at a time when in the laboratories, within the next couple of years, they're going to be having practical, high-efficiency solar panels, which will do a much better job of converting the sun's light into electricity than the current silicon cells.
What kind do you envision building, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely not. Because how ubiquitous are we going to have solar power within the next 2 or 3 years? Are we going to get to 40, 50, 60% solar power in the next 2 or 3 years? I don't think we're going to get there in the next 2 or 3 years in terms of actually developing new solar generation plants. Most of the expense in a solar generation plant is in the soft costs. The time it takes to permit, the amount that you actually put into actually paying for your lease for the site. Those are most of the costs. So the cost of the panels has come way down, and the efficiency is going to go way up over time. So in the way to drive that efficiency is for us to be doing more. And the more we do, the lower the costs will come, and as well, the higher the efficiency will become.
Constructing more panels.
Exactly.
Right. Now, how you do have to get approvals for all these land use sites in the 24 communities, correct?
Yeah. So let me just give you the numbers. There are 25 communities passed a local law. 20 of those communities signed on to the power contract. So in theory, 5 communities could sign up tomorrow and participate in this thing because they don't have to go ahead and pass the local law. And they kind of got almost all the way there, and then they held back and said, watch how this thing goes. So that's where we are. Now I need to be pulled back to the question that you asked because I just...
Right. If White Plains builds these panels and makes the approvals on the 4 sites in White Plains, who owns the electricity generated from those panels? Does White Plains parcel it out to White Plains residents only?
Got it. It's, first of all, it's an interesting question. It's kind of fun to play with the possibilities because the answer is there are possibilities.
Right.
So the contractual structure here opens up the opportunity for us to bring an entirely new source of money to renewable power. And I'm going to do my best to articulate this in a way that I'm not speaking Greek, because some people tell me I occasionally sound like I'm speaking Greek.
You're doing fine.
Thank you so far, but you haven't seen me try to wade into this one.
Well, okay,
So,
let's do it.
So, and then I'll get to that other piece of the question, which is actually who owns the electrons when it's being generated by the solar.
Okay.
The contract says, so we sign a contract. This is a $210 million contract over the course of 3 years. 2 years down here, 3 years up north.
Contract with whom?
So so we've gathered together these 20 municipalities, 107,000 homes. And so now an electricity supplier, a free market electricity supplier who is competing for individual homes out there says, if I win this bid, I don't have to pay $90 a home to actually sign up and go door to door and bug people on their phone and, and beg. It won't cost me that. So this will allow me to offer a more competitive price because I'm saving on my sales fees. So, and also there's an aggregation benefit of being able to buy in bulk as well. So there's a winning supplier. And that winning supplier down here was Con Ed Solutions. So Con Ed Solutions wins a 2-year contract with us. And down south, it is 90,000 homes. They win a 2-year contract for those 90,000 homes. Now, they know that as of May 1st, those 90,000 homes are coming on. So they actually have to go out and purchase the electricity in the market to actually serve those 90,000. And they purchase that in advance. They have to purchase that in advance because this is a fixed price. They don't purchase it in advance, they could go belly up. We require certain credit requirements from a supplier, and so we required them to hedge this out and purchase this in advance. So they purchased the power for 2 years as of May 1st. That's what they've done. And then, over and above the power, and this is traditional power that they purchased. This is, I have to underscore, this is not necessarily 100% renewable power that they have purchased. Over and above that power, they're purchasing renewable certificates from renewable power plants to, quote unquote, green the power.
Right. Kind of like IOUs for electrons.
Yeah, exactly. It's and
but it's
it
guaranteed.
then
They got the juice.
it then supercharges the development of that renewable generation industry. But still, the power that they purchased is traditional power. It's traditional mix with its percentage of electrons, as we were discussing earlier. But they bought it. They bought it 2 years out. So in our contract, they bought it for 2 years.
Yeah,
starting May 1st.
2 years out.
For 2 years to come.
They purchased the electricity this year.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a clause in our contract that says, we develop a renewable power plant, we can direct you to take the electrons from that plant to serve your contract. So now, if we develop this renewable power plant, we're directing them to take these electrons. Well, now, they have extra electrons, right?
They have to buy it. So Con Ed Solutions then will have to buy
from us
whatever White Plains generates,
exactly.
or whatever
exactly.
your other.
But now they also have this other existing contract sitting there, also on the side. So they have more electrons than they need, right? So they have to go out. They go sell those excess electrons into the market. If they make money in selling them, we get that. That comes to us.
Right.
Then by us, I mean the individual homeowners.
Well, how does Sustainable
that
Westchester
translate?
stay in business? I mean, now, do you get commissions from
Tenth of a
Con Ed
penny per
Solutions?
kilowatt hour.
You do get a commission from Con Ed Solutions.
Tenth of a penny per kilowatt hour.
Do you get any fees from the municipalities who
Nothing.
participate? Nothing.
Nothing.
Do you
And
get fees from contractors who build this stuff? Do they pay you for
Nothing.
for the right to build it?
Nothing. And so the way we envision this is if fossil fuel prices go up, as they already have, they've gone up 20%.
As we speak.
Yes.
Watch them on July 1st.
Exactly. July 1st. I got to
right.
But as they go up, the value of that stuff that our supplier is going to be selling on the market is going up. So they're going to make more money. So the higher fossil fuel prices go, the more money we can rake in to support these renewable generation plants that we're building.
Right.
So
Who's building?
100% of that profit is going to go towards developing renewable power plants.
It sounds almost like a hedge fund which has the side benefit of lighting people's houses.
You are in part correct, but the only difference in this is that we never do the deal if fossil fuel prices go down. We have total flexibility. We only do the deal if there's money going to be generated for the renewable generators. Otherwise, you don't do the deal. You have the choice. Do you designate that they take this power, or do you not?
So is this a fantasy, or can
this is reality.
everyone really come out ahead with this deal?
This is absolutely
so.
reality This is now. This is the terms of the contract that we have negotiated with Con Ed Solutions. It's in black and white. It's in fact this clause is in Exhibit D. It's on page 43 out of 43 pages of this contract.
How is Sustainable Westchester able to do this when we have all of these power companies and municipalities, et cetera, for years and years and years who had not been able to do this? You had solar power languishing, in essence, from the laboratory for decades.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden we seem to see this breakthrough. Like, is this something that you stumbled across in your Joule Assets company?
So
how did this happen?
So I'll tell you briefly about Joule Assets. Joule Assets is an international investment firm. We invest in energy efficiency in Europe and throughout the United States. And we then, when we invest in energy efficiency, we're also adding a lot of cash flows that people miss, to the project. So somebody does an energy efficiency project, maybe a control system will allow them to hit that 1 hour that's responsible for 25% of their electricity costs. That control system adds return on investment to the project. So being intelligent in the midst of energy markets creates win-wins.
Sort of like thinking before you turn on the light switch.
Bingo. Yeah,
Or,
think
right.
before you leap, which may be in short supply.
Think before you vote.
Speak.
Yes.
Maybe in short supply these days. However,
Right. Now, who will be building your solar panels on these
yes,
couple
back
hundred
to that
sites?
question that
Yes,
you asked a
yes.
while ago, and I did not answer.
That's all
So-
right. I have to remember those things. Right.
Thank you. And that's free market. So whoever comes to the table with a proposal for renewable power, we are going to look under the hood to make sure that they are a credible supplier with integrity, specifically that they are going to ensure that if they say this power plant is going to start operating on May 1st, 2017, that they have insurance that it's going to start operating on May 1st, 2017, because we're not in the risk business.
So it's competitive bidding for these sites
Absolutely.
that you are going to build.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we are not going to look to, know who's making money. All we care about is the final price, right?
So is this concept of creating an asset from a daily need, which is electricity, a financial aspect, has that caught on? I mean, is there something going on in big business or Wall Street that we've missed up until now?
Yes. This asset class, which we call energy reduction assets, is an asset class that investors and the financial community are looking at as, when is this going to really take off? And they know it should take off because they know that we have $50 billion a year of value from, for instance, energy efficiency. That's just the low-hanging fruit, meaning high return energy efficiency opportunities that haven't yet been done.
So doing something good for the environment could really be the next Xerox.
Doing something good for the environment is absolutely the economically smart thing to do. And if you're telling me that a Joule Assets could be the next Xerox, well,
That would be
twist
a nice
my
thing,
arm,
right?
my friend.
So in 2 years.
And I'll get back to another question that you asked too.
okay.
Go ahead, and then I'll come back.
In 2 years, the people will have to make a decision whether they're going to stay with the White Plains decision and all your other communities. How will they be approached to continue?
Well, I can tell you that it is our responsibility, and this actually goes back to your question, so it gives me a nice runway. Thank you. So it's our responsibility to report to the Public Service Commission on how we're doing. As Ed Koch used to say, how am I doing? Okay. So we've got to say, how we doing? And we have to report annually to the Public Service Commission. But we're going to be reporting to the people far more frequently than annually. We are consistently going to be comparing prices in the market with prices that we have set electricity prices at.
So you're going to have active website reporting how
Yes.
this is progressing.
Yes. And the Westchester Power Program is that active website for folks to get that kind of reporting. Also, folks are going to be given the opportunity to participate in individual initiatives, like we will be offering community solar. We will be offering participation in these large-scale solar projects. And I won't describe the financial products, but we are building financial products that can potentially give people money annually
For
simply
doing certain
for
things,
committing
right.
to buying solar for the next 15 years. So people are going to be participating. They're going to be part of the social media if they choose to be. But I'll tell you something. If we don't effectively organize over the next 2 years and engage folks, we have failed.
And you're doing that right now as you speak.
Yes.
You work
Well,
this
that's,
into your
that's
busy
what this is,
schedule.
right?
Do you
Yeah.
anticipate Sustainable Westchester expanding to become regional or national?
Sustainable Westchester is not going to expand beyond Westchester.
Will it be duplicated elsewhere?
Yeah, what Jewel Assets is doing throughout New York State is we're building these aggregations in communities from Long Island to the Highlands just north of us, to the west in Rochester and Erie, Sullivan, Binghamton, Albany. We're building these kinds of aggregations in these consumer empowerment networks. It's our intent. We believe it's possible that for 5 million residences, we could have fixed the power costs within the next 18 months. Now, that means New York City has to become involved in 4 of those 5.
Michael, you have been heard. Michael Gordon of Sustainable Westchester, and thank you for being on the program and enlightening us on this brand new program that starts this month in White Plains and across Westchester County.
Total
John,
pleasure.
right,
Thank you for having
right.
me.
John Bailey, Peter Katz, Jim Benerofe, good night for people to be heard.